Great to have you with us. Now, in our first story, the minority is disputing claims by government that it has been shortchanged in the $180 million contract for the Sagrami housing project. Addressing the media during a tour of the project sites by Parliament Works and Housing Committee, the minority spokesperson on the committee, Emmanuel Bejua, said government's posturing towards the housing needs of the citizenry with particular reference to the Sagrami housing project is scandalous.
Ladies and gentlemen, the minority of the Select Committee of Works and Housing are grateful to you, ladies and gentlemen, of the press for honoring our invitation to cover this press conference at rather a short notice. We acknowledge your sacrifices in educating and defending the right of citizens to decent housing and exposing wrongdoing in our society. We decided to have this press conference here at Sagrami site for you to have a first-hand information regarding the state of affairs and progress of work to date. The background of this project is that on Friday, 31st October 2012, Parliament granted an approval of $200 million for the construction of affordable housing project at Sagrami site near Chopoli in the Ningo Pram. 36 units out of the 1,024 were also completed for occupation, and the remaining 388 are at 70% completion. Outstanding works. The committee was also informed by technical officials from the Western Housing Ministry that the remaining 388 housing units as per the first phase schedule are yet to commence. We were further informed that sewer treatment plan as well as the main water and electricity supply are not yet in place. Our conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, is that in view of the fact that the current housing deficit is estimated about 2 million housing units and growing, it is scandalous for the government of Ghana to sit by and allow Sagrami housing project, which you have witnessed today, and all other affordable housing projects, such as located in Wa, Tamale, Kumasi, Koforia, and Pong, to go waste. The minority demand the following: that one, the government through the Minister of Works and Housing should go into immediate negotiation with contractor Michels OAS Constructors Ghana Limited to enable them to go back to site to complete the first phase of the project. All the ancillary works needed to enable the occupation of the 636 housing units completed so far should be done without further delay.
Now, speaking to me on the Super Morning Show last Friday on the state of that project, Minister for Works and Housing Samuel Lartey indicated the Sagrami housing project, among others, are not currently on the agenda of government.
We have not completed any units at all. We are trying to complete what President Kufuor left off and was never completed. The point of roofing and plastering, and then the rest of the internal amenities will be put in place. The internal road systems, electricity and water.
Now, the procurement officer at the Sagrami project site, Silvanus Ativo, describes the latest development as a misunderstanding between government and the contractor. He joins us live on the phone with more. Mr. Ativo, explain to us the details of this misunderstanding.
Hello.
Mr. Ativo, we want to know the details of this misunderstanding you say exists between government and the contractor.
Yeah, like I'm saying, you know, the contractor, the reason for the contractor suspending the work is they have to refund some elements to them. Are you with me?
We are listening.
Tax element to them, refunding of tax element. And that is the reason why the contractor is suspending the work for now. The other side also is this. The Parliament has approved $200 million for them to construct a 5,000 unit housing. And then this 5,000 housing is in a 3 phases. So they will start first and produce 1,502 units. Later, I don't know the reason. The government asked them to reduce it to 1,412, which is something that they are doing. So far, they produced phase 4. Then that is complete. That is complete. When they produce this 1,412 and it's complete, they have to hand over to the government. Government will sell this, give the money back. If the same contractor is going to continue the project, they will give the money back to the contractor. Then he goes in for another 1,500, whatever way they want it, till they get a 5,000. But I'm told that people are saying that they have given 200 million Ghana USD to construct 5,000 housing units, which is not so. Like I'm explaining to you, this is the breakdown that I have. So I think this is the confusion. Maybe the government is not understanding the how they call it, the contractor also not getting it well.
Yes,
but
Mr.
for me,
Ativo,
like I'm saying, I'm not a technical man on site. That they are not here now. So this is the information that's given to me when somebody asks me, as you explained to you.
can you tell us, Mr. Ativo, how many houses the current contractor was asked to build? How the contracts that they signed with government, how many units were they to build?
Now they have to build 1,412.
That is all their contract covers.
This is what they're supposed to build and hand over to them by September 2016, thereabout.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sylvanus Ativo, for joining us. Now, Joy News visited the project last year, October, and reported that the almost complete project seemed abandoned at the time. Let's bring you a recap of that report filed by Joseph Akable.
Housing project pegged at $180 million rests on a 300-acre land off the Accra Aflao Road. 1,502 housing units facility comprising 1 to 3 bedroom apartments and townhouses were to be built. They were expected to be sold at subsidized rates for low-income earners to afford. It is to be a complete city with industrial and recreational facilities, schools, shopping malls, and other social amenities. It forms part of Ghana's push to tackle its housing deficit that has for years been pegged at 1.7 million. Very beautiful housing units one can observe when you are using the Accra Aflao Road. It is the Sagrami housing project. From afar, it looks completed and occupied by people. But a closer interaction with sources within the unit tells Joy News that the project has been abandoned since the change in government. By abandoned, our sources explain to us that there hasn't been any progress in the work. The second fact that may be disappointing to those who may see the beauty of this project is the fact that it is not completed. And that is what our sources tell us. They go a step further to inform us that parts of the various units have actually been taken over by weeds, as movement within it is somewhat difficult, simply because of the fact that the work is not progressing. This unit has been in the news quite recently after the Deputy Minister for Works and Housing, Frida Prempe, raised some concerns about the fact that the project cost remains the same despite a reduction in the number of housing units that are to be provided for. We know for a fact, and from the communication from the Deputy Minister, that just about a little over 400 of the housing units are actually be completed and ready to be commissioned, but a good number. You recall that this particular phase of the project has to do with 1,500 housing units provided in a housing units project that is supposed to provide 5,000 housing units. So in terms of the situation here, we can say that work is not progressing because it's been abandoned. And the second fact being that No one has taken residence at any of the housing units that are completed as we speak to you. Reporting for Joy News from Sagrami, my name is Joseph Akable.
Now, fire has gutted the top floor of a one-story building in Krofrom in Kumasi, leaving families displaced. It took the timely intervention of the fire service and the police to prevent the blaze from spreading to other parts of the building. Sunday Ajoko has more.
Residents suggest children who attempted to cook some noodles started the fire. A claim fire personnel cannot immediately confirm. Earlier warning by a neighbor who had seen them was ignored. The neighbor, who will not reveal her identity, says attempts to douse the flame failed after she had whisked the children away to safety. I came out to see the house on fire. I tried dousing the fire. I poured lots of water into it, but later it kept spreading, so I had to leave. I had to run for my life, she says. The floor ravaged by the fire houses 4 families, none of which could salvage any of their belongings. Fire personnel say they are investigating to establish the real cause of the fire. Sunday Ajoko reporting.
Now, the formation of dark clouds should ideally bring joy to most people. Whilst farmers anticipate water for their crops, it represents a break from the scorching sun to others. But for those residing in low-lying and flood-prone areas, it's an unwelcome reminder of an imminent disaster. Joy News' Komla Adom visited Odona here in Accra, where residents say fixing drains in the area connecting to the new Odona drain is the only way they can be saved from perennial floods.
2 days after Sunday's rains, some residents here at Odona in Accra are still clearing the residue. Flood waters swept through some homes here at Dansbar behind the Odona market, destroying several properties. 64-year-old Margaret Ansoma wades through what is left of a stagnant water on this compound. She is one of many occupants in this compound who frets whenever the clouds gather.
I run out whenever the clouds gather. On Sunday, I had to be carried through the floods to my room. It gives me heartaches.
For years, residents have been enduring the floods. Evacuating is not an option for them because accommodation here comes relatively cheaper. Margaret tells me she was nearly swept away when it rained last year. She's considering moving out of this place to her hometown as the rains set in.
I've told my son I'm packing my belongings to move to my hometown.
All the occupants in this compound, including her children, had to move up this building when their rooms were submerged in flood waters.
It's scary. Whenever it rains, everyone runs up this building, which could cave in.
As many as 6 houses on this stretch were affected, and 32-year-old Nana, not her real name, says they are helpless.
When we see that it's about to rain, we don't sleep. As at now, we only pray to God to intervene because the situation here is very bad and we don't know what they are doing about it.
Walls came down. Provisions from this shop were washed away. Room furniture and other appliances were destroyed after a few minutes of rain.
The gutter is very small, so when it comes like that, the pressure is too much that it can't enter into the small odor very fast, and so it gets flooded and then it enters into people's rooms and then houses.
At this rate, the residents here say another heavy rain means only one thing: more destruction to property and threat to lives. They, however, believe expanding these drains that feed into the new Odo channel could mitigate the impact of the rains. Until then, when the clouds form again, residents would have to live with the trauma of a possible disaster.
We also visited Glefe, another flood-prone community in the Ablekuma West municipality here in Accra, where residents believe construction of storm drains is the solution to their perennial floods. Joy News' Henry Kwesi-Bedu reports the lives of residents, mostly children, are at risk each time there's a heavy downpour.
I
am here at Glefe after Sunday's downpour, and as far as the eye can see, there are pools of water, the remnants of the heavy rains which flooded some parts here. In this community, full of ramshackle structures, scraps and children walking barefooted, the water is greenish, littered with multicolored plastic. Augustina Boateng is a JHS1 student. She narrates the strategy many students here deploy anytime it rains and they are to attend school. Augustina wants government to fix the problem.
We feel bad in the community. The community are flooded. Even when you are going to school, man, we wear sandals. When we walk in the rain, even our school, there is water in the school. We want the government to come and help us. Even our grandmas, when they see the rain even falling, they start crying.
Patience Teyi tells me she placed her grandchildren on a wardrobe when it rained last Sunday after her apartment became flooded.
We are unable to step out of our homes whenever it rains. Every room in the area is flooded. Just this Sunday night, we had to put the children on beds and in wardrobes. How can you sleep when your room is flooded? This is very worrying.
Regina Nate has been living at Glefe since 1990. She laments she's unable to sleep anytime it rains. Like Regina, Nanaya also goes through the pain of not sleeping at night as her family is forced to constantly scoop water from their rooms when it rains.
Whenever it rains, the situation is bad. The school nearby also gets flooded, so parents come for their children. All the rooms in this house get flooded. Anytime there's a heavy downpour, my grandchildren are unable to sleep. I take them to the shop where it's somehow safe, so they spend the night.
We don't have money to relocate. When it starts drizzling, we become terrified. We pray it never rains.
But another resident, Jonathan Papo Alote, says the residents must take some of the blame for the situation. He accuses some of building in waterways.
Really suffering. The government should help us. Whilst we are faced with the issue of tidal waves, the issue of flood has become a problem. Some residents here build in waterways. We want authorities to take charge of resolving this issue for us because the stagnant water here can contribute to our children contracting diseases since they play in it.
With experts warning of more rains to come, residents here fear they could soon be the next victims if authorities do not intervene and ensure their safety in this flood-prone area. Henry Kwesi-Bedu's report for Joy News.
Now, Joy News checks as the Wager Rage have revealed the deep gullies there, which have been described by environmentalists as dangerous, are widening following the recent downpour. You will recall last year the Environmental Protection Agency EPA warned of its possible collapse. They said the hilly area, which is also an earthquake-prone zone, has developed deep faults which could trigger a mudslide. Maxwell Agbagba visited the area and reports residents are living in fear about the possibility of a mudslide.
The director of Intersectorial Mining Division at the Environmental Protection Agency, Ransford Sechi, is worried and warns that the ridge could collapse anytime.
The fear is that if something is not done, something meaning stabilization of the ridge is not done, there is a potential of this whole thing collapsing to destroy all the properties down this ridge and also to block the entire western corridor with the mud that would maybe happen. We should not wait for disaster to strike before we take action.
the once beautiful lush and greenery on this ridge has given way to this brown patch. What we have here is one of the biggest gullies on the Weija Kaswa Ridge, a disaster waiting to happen. Months ago, when we visited the ridge, we saw the devastation caused by quarrying activities and the felling of trees. The vegetative cover had been completely removed, making it easy for the flood water to wash down the silts downstream. The results? Deep gullies have developed under many buildings, with some structures hanging dangerously. Our latest visit showed how the recent rains have further aggravated the woes of residents. Chief Biaboko. Okay, Chief, what's your name?
My name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel Adai has been living at the Weija Ridge for 11 years. He fears the ridge, which is now mainly clay, could tumble down after heavy rains.
This moment, this moment, how this place becomes, it worries we people living here because of the erosions. Because first, this place was not graded. This place will be flat land, and it's covered by grasses. So now they keep all the grasses off because of the taking the gravels. That's why we are disturbed for this area.
Now, a survivor of the Sunday Ajoko flood incident, Emmanuel Sarr, says he cannot get closure until his 3-year-old son, who got missing in the floodwater, is found. His wife, who was part of mourners traveling from Tema, drowned together with a military couple and others on the Tema motorway. Emmanuel, who was also in the bed of the pickup, managed to swim to safety, but now has to deal with the trauma of losing his wife and only child. Quite a solemn scene there, and my colleague Maxwell Agbagba joins me with an update on this story. Maxwell, you are in Emmanuel's family house. What's happening there?
Well, Daniel, as you just saw, some family members are gathered at the house at Kaswa Ofako. Well, the crying was intense with the arrival of some co-choristers of a Methodist church where Emmanuel worships. They sang hymns purposely to console the widower, but that rather made him burst into, uncontrollable tears as witness. Well, but we've been speaking to Emmanuel. He's been telling us exactly what happened. He said on that day they went for the funeral in Tema. Just when they were about to head back to Accra, it started raining heavily. There was a military pickup that was available. So 14 people decided to sit in the bed of the pickup, and then 3 people sat in the cabin of the pickup. Just when they got to the motorway, the stretch very close to cabin where the accident happened, he said the driver, one of the tires of the vehicle actually hit a pothole, and the impact of that forced the vehicle. The vehicle get off the road and then landed in the culvert, which had a lot of water, flowing through it just about at that time. He said when they got into the water, he couldn't see his son, couldn't see with violence. Some of them were able to split safety. That the 3 people who were in the car died. That is the soldier couple, and then another man who was driving the car. Emmanuel's wife, who was in the bed of the pickup, and then Emmanuel's 3-year-old son, who is now, missing for the past 3 days after the incident. Another 1-year-old child, we are told, was inside, was in the bed of the pickup when the incident happened. That child is also missing. That.
Right. Very, very harrowing scene there. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. And if you see anything, please contact us here at Joy News. We will let the families know. Still live on Joy News today, my name is Daniel Daze. We will take these important messages. When we come back, the Electoral Commission is dismissing allegations of voter fraud in the recent referendum that resulted in the creation of 6 small regions. But ASEPA says the EC cannot investigate itself in such a grave matter. There's more after this. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the Electoral Commission is dismissing allegations of voter fraud in the recent referendum that resulted in the creation of the country's latest regions. A viral video that emerged after the referendum has persons purporting to be EC officials thumbprint some ballot papers. The video, to some, was evidence of rigging of the referendum. The EC at a news conference on Tuesday, however, says the persons captured in the video could not have been Ghanaian EC officials. Deputy Commissioner in charge of operations, Samuel Lartey, says the insignificant irregularities recorded at the polls cannot be said to have affected the credibility of that referendum.
The Commission insisted that jackets should be worn throughout the voting period for security and identification reasons. And all the coordinators and officers who monitored the voting confirmed that this directive was strictly complied with. The question is, how come that none of the officials cited in all the videos was wearing the election official's jacket? Again, these officials were not recruited online. They were recruited by returning officers and the technicians in conjunction with the district electoral officers. They personally recruited them and trained them. The returning officers handed the election materials to the officials personally, and they also went around monitoring and had personal interactions with these officials on the voting day. Finally, the election officials submitted the election results and materials back to the returning officers after everything was over. With these interactions, the returning officers could have actually identified the faces of the people involved if they were really the staff of what? The Commission. A critical look at one of the videos in which somebody was thumbprinting ballot papers outside the screen reveals that even the ballots did not bear the conspicuous yellow and brown colors for yes and no, respectively, as appeared on the ballot for the referenda. And in the same video, you also find out that the logo on the papers on the next table was the old one without the coat of arms, which we did not use for the referenda. It is instructive to note that all the documents we used for the referenda bore the original logo with a coat of arms which had been reintroduced before the referenda.
Meanwhile, the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, is dismissing the explanation by the Electoral Commission on the alleged overvoting videos and is rather calling for an investigation. In a statement signed by its Executive Director, Mensa Thompson, and copied to the Interior Minister, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, and the Chairperson of the EC, ASEPA maintains the EC cannot investigate itself in such a grave matter. He spoke earlier on News Desk.
If you listen to the electoral Electoral Commission on the explanation they attempted to give for the allegations of electoral malpractices that came out of the referendum. I think the entire, press conference and explanation that they gave, instead of answering a lot of the questions that were on the mind of the people, rather raised a lot of questions that the commission failed to answer. Now, if the commission comes up to dismiss the video and say they are not genuine, they are fake, or whatever that term that they used to call to dismiss the videos, then the commission must be able to give us more information about what they have done to authenticate those videos. And if they are fake, then we need to understand, one, how fake are those videos? Is it that the videos have been doctored, or the videos were not taken during the referendum at the polling centers? Now, how have they also tried to authenticate the identity of the people who were captured on the video? Because the EC yesterday said that they are not sure these people were their staff. Now, if the people are not the staff of the EC, then it also raises several questions that also needs to be answered. And then the other issue has to do with the lack of identity for these polling officials, which the EC said they provided jackets to be able to identify these people. And so once the people in the video are not in jackets, that is enough basis that these people are not staff of the EC. Unless, of course, the EC want to tell us that those jackets are not removable, or whatever that explanations are, then those reasons cannot be valid. I think that it is important that we put the issues in the right context and let the Electoral Commission understand that you cannot investigate yourself in such a serious matter that borders on your own organizational reputation. And it's important that an independent entity with that investigative capacity to be able to carry out forensic audit on those videos give us further details. Because if the EC says that these people are not their staff, then who are they? We need to find out, because what they were engaged in those videos were criminal. And so we need to be able to ascertain the identity of these people so that we can invite all these people for interrogation. And that will further, give the EC, proper information on how to reform and take certain actions going into the district assembly elections and the subsequent elections that they are going to hold.
So live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Now, the National Democratic Congress, the opposition NDC, is challenging parts of the EC's official communique following last month's IPAC meeting. Currently addressing the news conference is General Secretary Johnson Esedun Ketia. Let's join them now.
New voters register. In the absence of that, we can only come to the conclusion that there is a grand scheme by the Commission to deliberately disenfranchise disqualified and qualified and potential voters for whatever purpose we don't know at this stage. Thank you very much, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana.
So,
yes.
So we'll take the questions.
Acknowledge that Midday is taking live and
Expect more updates on this news conference in later bulletins. You're still live on Joy News Today with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up in business, governments to consider adjusting taxes on aircraft spare parts. Daryl Carl has the latest after this.